Today I wanted to share the story of the birth of my daughter. It started on November 12th. I had just finished work, my last day of work. My due date was 2 days later, November 14th. And on the Friday, on November 12th, I had an appointment at the maternity clinic to get everything checked, the cervix, what's going on, are we close to getting into labor, is baby close to coming out? So we had everything checked and they offered to have a cervix sweep. A sweep is when they enter with the finger, they go around the cervix and sweep around the bubble in which the baby is laying on the cervix. So let's say that's the cervix. So they just go around and kind of do a sweep to put some space in between the bubble and the cervix, and that's supposed to be helping you get into labor faster or something like that. And I said, yes, that would be great. If we can help baby come out, that would be lovely, because I know that for first-time moms, sometimes baby can drag on and then you're 2 weeks later and you have to be induced. And I didn't want to get to that point. So they checked and I wasn't dilated enough to do that. So they just do a cervix massage. I don't know what that looks like, so I don't know how to mimic it. But they did some sort of mini cervix massage. They said this wouldn't really do anything, but at least we tried something. So we come out of the clinic, we were downstairs in the clinic building, and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to eat that night because it was 5 or 6 p.m. and we were looking for takeout options. And all of a sudden, my water broke. I just got really, really wet. It's such a weird feeling. It's not like you peed yourself. It's really just something uncontrollable. And all of a sudden, you're very wet. And it came like in waves. And I was just standing there in the lobby and just looking at my partner like, what is going on? So we ran upstairs before the clinic closed to see what the heck we were supposed to do now, because my water had just broke and I wasn't in labor. So they tested the water and gave me a ton of pads to feel a little bit more comfortable because my pants were completely soaked. And they said that it was the amniotic fluid. So it was my water that had broke. Obviously, I was like, I know I did not pee my pants, but test it, whatever makes you feel better. So they said, so you're going to be in labor very soon. Go home, get some rest, and try to kickstart the labor. And if it doesn't start within 24 hours, go to the hospital and they will induce you. I am someone who wants to do things naturally, so I wanted to do the whole labor, giving birth vaginally, naturally as much as possible without drugs and all of that. So in my mind, the goal was to eat spicy food and try all the things that we could try to kickstart labor as soon as possible so I would not have to get induced. So we get home and the clinic calls us and says, go to the hospital. We just want to make sure that the baby is okay because your water broke. We should have checked it when we were there, but it was so sudden and kind of a surprise for them as well. So they forgot to check that the baby's heart rate was fine. So we went to the hospital that night after eating and the baby was totally fine. They did a non-stress test and the baby's heart rate was great. And then the hospital said, if you haven't started labor within 24 hours, so by like 5 p.m. the next day, come back and we'll induce you. So the next day, I tried absolutely every single thing that I could to kickstart labor. I tried to get some rest. I tried to relax, do meditation, eat spicy food, everything. And yet nothing happened. So we went to the hospital. And we, unfortunately, they were short on staff, so they had to reroute us to another hospital about 20 minutes away. But it was a little bit stressful, so we get to the new hospital that we never been to before. It's in another city, and we get there, but they had this really cool room, and they had a water birthing bath thing, so like a big bath that you can give birth in. So we get there, the nurse looks at our birthing plan that we had created with our doula, And she's like, oh, so you don't want to get induced? I'm like, yes, I do now. Don't look at the birthing plan anymore. It's all out the window for now. And then we start getting induced. I believe it was 10 p.m. In the beginning, the induction is kind of slow. You're starting to feel contractions, but not really. But within, I would say, like an hour, the contractions started to get stronger and stronger because they were putting more product in the IV, whatever it's called, oxytocin, I think. And then it starts getting unpleasant. The doctor who had come and seen me before the induction started, she said, you're going to want to get the epidural almost right away because it's going to be very uncomfortable. She basically said it's going to be the worst pain of your life. Even when I was getting induced, I wanted to do it as naturally as possible. So I said, don't plan any epidural. I want to try it without it. So the hours go by and it gets really intense. Thankfully, my partner and my doula were helping me get through it. The baby's heart rate would go really, really low if I was in any other position other than sitting with my back straight on either a chair or an exercise ball. If I was laying down, if I was standing, if I was leaning back or leaning forward too much on my side, the heart rate would go too low. So I had to stay sitting for the duration of the labor while my doula or my partner was behind me putting pressure on my lower back, and then the other person would be in front of me holding my knees so I didn't like move back and forth when they were putting pressure. So we did that for I think 4 or 5 hours until I started to feel like it was really intense. They were very regular. They had been very regular for a while, and I thought, we've made some good progress. But there was a change of nurses during that time because it was, midnight or 2 a.m. So we waited, and then around 7 or 8 a.m., they decided to check where we were at. So they checked the cervix. They wanted to know because, like I said, the baby's heart rate would keep dropping with each contraction. Even if I was sitting straight, it would be worse if I wasn't sitting straight, but it would still drop with the contraction. So they wanted to make sure that we were making progress towards giving birth because the baby was not having a hard time, but wasn't comfortable in that whole situation. So they checked the cervix and they look at me and they're like, there's been basically no progress. You're at like 1 or 2 centimeters out of 10. So we need to talk about options because you can't go on. It had already been 36 or 40 hours since my water had broke, and we just had to move forward with a plan because baby's heart rate wasn't doing that great, and I was freaking exhausted and in pain, and I couldn't get the epidural because I couldn't lay down when you get the epidural to potentially like just relax and maybe help your body relax to open up and give birth. I couldn't get that because I couldn't lay down on my back or in bed. With the epidural, you lose some sense of your lower body. So you can't be sitting on a exercise ball or on a chair. You need to be in bed, and I couldn't do that. So they get the OB in to talk to me about an emergency C-section. And at that point, I was crying because I felt like a failure and it just wasn't going to plan. Obviously, I was getting induced and now I was going to get a freaking emergency C-section instead of giving birth naturally. It took maybe an hour or two for me to change my mindset. I had to talk to myself in my head and be like, you can't go into an emergency C-section and feel like a failure. You can't go in and be sad about it. You need to be happy that you're going to see your daughter really soon. It's what's best for her because her heart rate isn't liking the contractions. And it's also best for you because you're exhausted. You've been in labor all night with no rest, and this is going to give you rest. So I convinced myself after we had to wait anyways, but after about an hour or two, that it was the best thing to do for the baby and for myself. Then they prepped me because I didn't take any epidural or any drugs. They took me to the OR and gave me what's called a spinal. So they inject something in your spine, and then everything from here down you can feel, but you can't feel pain. They were trying to prick me, I think, with a little needle, and I couldn't feel it. It's weird because you get into the OR and you're shaking, probably from the labor. So you're shaking and you feel like you're really cold, like you're almost in hypothermia because you're really shaking. And then all of a sudden, after, 30 seconds or a minute, my body got really warm and nice, and I stopped shaking, and I was able to just relax for the first time since I started the induction. And I was really nice. So I thought, this is how it was supposed to be. This is great. We're going to see baby soon, which is absolutely insane because she's still in there. Like, she's in your body and she's going to be out into this world very soon. So that's really exciting. And I started to relax and was able to smile, which was nice as well. And kind of just accepted that that's how my baby was going to be born. And then my partner was able to come in and he sat beside me, and then they started, opening up and stuff. One thing to be mindful of if you are having a C-section, whether it's an emergency or a scheduled C-section, don't look up into the light. The light above you is, very bright, but it's made of, I think, little mirrors. So if you look up in there, you might see things that are going down there on the other side of the curtain so that you can't see what's going on. But if you look up, you might actually see what's going on. And I did. And I saw a lot of blood and a lot of things going on. And then I just looked at my partner, and it was great. But we were getting excited, and then they did their thing. And then the OB said something like, you're going to feel some pressure, like it's time to pull her out. You're going to feel some pressure. And I felt like a lot of pressure. So she pushed her out, and then all of a sudden, like, no more pressure. And we heard the baby cry right away. And then we heard the OB say something like, oh, she just pooped. Like, she pooped right coming out of you. So she was probably ready to poop when she was in there, and she was just waiting to come out. So she was crying and pooping right away, and she was doing great. They cut the cord, and then they pulled her in front of her so we could see her before they did their little tests. And she was all blue and purple and crying and beautiful, and it was the most intense moment of my life. Literally, like, all of a sudden, after the whole 9 months of pregnancy, after like waiting and preparing for the baby, all of a sudden she's there and she's crying and she seems to be doing great. Yeah, she's purple and blue, but I think that's totally normal. Like, that's how they come out. And then they put her to like get her weight and check her to make sure that she was all good. And then she came on my chest, and me and my partner were both crying because it was amazing. Like, it was the most intense, the most wonderful moment of my life. And I can't even describe it. Like, it's just, oh my God, there is a new person in this world that was in my belly before, and now it's out and it's on my chest and it's doing great, and it's my child. Like, all of a sudden,
I have a child. I'm a parent.
So that was that. And yeah, I can talk about postpartum in another video, but basically it was, even after everything, even if we did not do anything that was on our birth plan, it was the most wonderful thing. And yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. But yeah, so just so you know, like, if you get into an emergency C-section or if things don't go as planned, I think that my one advice that I could give someone who's going through something like this is to take the time to accept what is going on. before you jump into things. So for me, it was getting the news that things were not progressing. We had to do an emergency C-section. It was basically the only way. And I had to accept that and be on board with it before going into the emergency C-section. Otherwise, I believe I would not have had the amazing experience that I had in the OR. I think just accepting however you prepare. I had done so much before my due date, and I had really wanted to do everything naturally, but however you can prepare, things might not go as planned, and that's okay as long as baby gets out and everyone is healthy. So that's my only advice, is just be flexible, accept that things will change, and enjoy the ride. It's crazy. It's painful, but it's something that you might just live once. And it's worth the experience. It's worth just enjoying the moment and taking it all in. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.